What's going on, everybody? Good to see y'all again. Welcome back for another episode of Just Talking Ball with the Texas Jayhawk. I'm your host, Texas Jayhawk, and as always, got my boy in the building, Eric Foster. What's going on, E?
Living the dream, baby.
It's been a dream for you and a nightmare for others. So we're not gonna uh, get too detailed into it, but another week of football, which is always good. Another some pivotal movement, in the college football foot playoff picture, which is still very early. It's only week two of the official rankings, if you will, and of course, that comes with that is everybody's projections, everybody's assumptions, everybody's doomsday scenarios, all that. But before we get into that, because that is a big topic we're going to discuss, is there anything that you are mad about? And you know what? You said I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna go first. I'm mad. I am mad at my Kansas Jayhawks because obviously we lost, but it's how we're doing it. You can winning is hard and losing comes with it. It's a competitive sport. Other teams practice too. This is Power Four, but when you show for like you talked about Texas against Vanderbilt, when you show that you can not dominate, but at least have it in control and control the game for 3.5 quarters, and then all of a sudden at that last half or that fourth quarter, you just give it up. Now Texas didn't give up a win, but Kansas did, and you give up I mean, you're up 20 to 17, and it's Arizona's not even like looking for the tie. And I don't want to get I'm going to get into the recap, but just the tendency. 2023, Kansas State gave up the lead. 2024, Arizona State, Illinois, West Virginia, TCU, Cincinnati this year, and now Arizona. Those are games all lost in the last 2 to 3 minutes of a game when you've had the lead.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm mad about, how we're losing. And I don't want to be like everybody else. Everybody's got a platform. Everybody's got an opinion. Oh, I'm tired of my team losing. I'm looking at it a little more deeper. Do I always ride for my team? Yes. Are there times where our team is probably outmatched or, there's a better team they're playing? Yes. But am I still going for my team? Yes. And if what happens is what is expected to happen, like if Texas played Kansas today, I'm pretty sure just off paper, Texas would dominate them. Okay. Texas beats us 35-20. Am I mad about that? Am I surprised? No. But you could find some good things in that. But when you're beating teams where you've been favored because you've done some things in the last 2 years to get some notoriety to say, okay, Kansas is a for real team. There was terms out there that it's not just a basketball school anymore. You've done some good things. Okay, so 22-23, you go to back-to-back bowl seasons. It's fine. 24, when you have a loaded team with the all-time leading rusher on that team and you kind of underachieve, that's fine. Okay, it's not fine, but you got a little more leeway, a little more grace because of what you've done in the last 2 years. Now you're in a position where, okay, now it's a team it's a rebuild. You've got your quarterback who's the most experienced player. That's fine, but you're in position to win some games. And I never want to talk about, oh, it's coaching or it's players, because the coach's job is to put their players in the best situation to be most successful. You've got to watch film, do all that. I'm not saying that nobody else knows, but then there's also a question to say, okay, did this player execute it? That's neither nor. That's not the question right now as far as being in position or did the players execute. You're winning a game. You're doing what it takes to get the win. But in the last 2 minutes, all of a sudden it's like we forgot how to play. We're out of position on defense and drops. If I show you, we'll see in the highlights where they go down and there's a running back. What's his name? Quincy Craig. He had 3 carries the whole damn game, and 2 of those was on the game-winning drive, which he wasn't touched until, we'll get into it. Anyway, I'm mad about us losing, but the way we're losing. And I think we're better than that, but we're not getting it done. And so that needs to be questioned. And I hate to be one of those guys because I see it so much on social media where, I don't know. It's just it's tough because I have a different background in it. Played in it, coached it. Now I'm doing a podcast about it, and it's like, I don't want to be like everybody else, but sometimes, like you say, that question has to be asked. That issue has to be addressed sooner or later. So I don't want to go on too long. What are you mad? What are you mad about?
That was a very generous score prediction at 35-20, which leads me into what I'm mad about, which is overreactions, right?
Yeah.
I feel like early in the season it was this extreme overreaction to Arch Manning being the biggest bust in the history of college
Mm-hmm.
football.
Mm-hmm.
Texas underachieving, Steve Sarkisian, even maybe being on the hot seat for some of the
That's
ultra
crazy.
delusional. And now that pendulum is swung and it's swinging the other way of, how can Texas, how will Texas handle winning the SEC championship, and all of this crazy shit that has not even, there's so much work to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it just reminds me, sometimes we got to take a beat, and I got to implore my fellow Texas fans, let's be where our feet are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's been a struggle for us. I talked about it last week, empathizing with the Aggies, right? Where we couldn't even enjoy as we began this run of success because we were so busy waiting for the wheels to fall off
Mm-hmm.
instead of being where our feet were in the midst of, building a really solid foundation. And I think right now I'm seeing in that moment, we're not where our feet are, which is going on the road to the number 5 team in the country, who's 50-2 in their last 52 games at home,
Wow.
um, or 32-2, something, a whole lot to a whole little,
Yeah.
in terms of their record at home. So, a lot of things have to go right. And I think we missed that mark. A lot of things have to go right in order for Texas to go and win, um, in this game on Saturday. So I think we just got to tone it down and relax.
Well, that's one of the calmest takes you've had. I know it's been building up. Y'all were on a bye last week, so it's kind of like it was easy to sit back, but you kind of wish you was watching the horns. But now it's here, and now you're like, okay, let's see what
Yeah.
this 10 to 11 days of preparation, let's see it pay off. And
Right.
I know how those fans are in Austin, but it nevertheless is exciting. We're going to get into that with a little more detail, but you alluded to it, so let's talk about it real quick. The new or this week's playoff college football playoff rankings came out, and there were a bunch of scenarios, there were a bunch of what ifs, there was a bunch of criticism, notably so. And a tidbit today, so golly, his last name's Rhodes. He's the assistant AD at
Mac
Baylor.
Rhodes.
Mac Rhodes. He stepped down today.
He's the
From
athletic director at Baylor,
Yeah,
and
but
then
he stepped, and he's like, I forgot what his position is with the committee, but he
he's
was
the
the guy.
chair.
Yeah, but he's the guy that took the interview and talks all that. But he stepped down today for personal reasons, and I don't know if he stepped. I know he stepped away from the committee, but I don't know if he stepped away from Baylor. But
He did
it was
both.
cited for personal reasons, and so whatever he is going through, wish him the best. But that's just something I don't know who's gonna. Did you see an announcement of a replacement for him, or who's gonna?
They nominated the Arkansas AD, who's already on the committee.
Okay, yeah, and I
Uh,
figured to be somebody in
I
house.
do think I want to be remiss. I think we pride ourselves in being honest and candid, right? The personal reason is not a personal reason. He was under investigation for
Oh, I didn't know.
the sideline. He was under investigation for a sideline altercation with
Oh
a
wow.
Baylor player during the Arizona State game.
Oh
And
wow.
then yesterday there was another allegation. They say it doesn't involve Title IX and it doesn't involve an athlete, but it's something that warrants the second investigation in 3 weeks.
Jesus.
So
Okay.
he's stepping away, and just I don't I this is gonna sound crazy, but I just don't know how, as a parent, as somebody that cares about their kids, and this is my view and my view alone. David has very good friends and mentors on the Baylor staff, so this is not an interdiction of them.
Yeah.
But at some point, a place becomes who everything and all the data points say that they are, right?
Mhm.
If you go somewhere in Alabama, the numbers say Alabama is a place you go and win,
Mhm.
right? The numbers say Baylor is a place where you go where weird, crazy shit always happens. And I just don't know how, as a parent, you keep sending your kids to Baylor for any sport. It's all of them now. It's not just one. It's always something with the Baylor athletic department. And I think at some point we got to just start calling it for what it is and saying for what it is. Shit's weird in Waco, and you gotta quit sending your kids there. Jesus.
I didn't know. I didn't. That was my God honest truth. I just read that. It was personal reasons, but Eric's always got. He's an Austin guy, but he's always he.
No, that's ESPN. Shout out.
Oh,
That was
okay.
no inside information.
Oh,
I just read
okay.
the
Because he
articles this
he he
this
is an
morning.
insider. Yeah,
Uh,
he's definitely an
that's
insider.
true.
But yeah.
But I
Oh.
think the playoffs. I did just just the tidbit on the actual rankings. Um, I think that the committee is signaling to a couple of programs.
Mhm.
Oklahoma, if you win out, you're in. Texas, if you go 2 and 3 down the stretch, you're in. Provided that the one, of course, is not Arkansas. But even if it was actually two and if you go 2-1 down the stretch, you're in. Notre Dame, they're signaling to everyone's kind of dismay. Notre Dame is likely in unless some crazy things could happen and pose some really good conversations. Texas wins out, Oklahoma wins out, BYU goes and wins the Big 12. Um, that creates a scenario where now the conversation likely becomes Notre Dame or Oregon, right? Because you're still going to have that highest rated G5 champion. You're still going to have that ACC champion. So then the conversation becomes Notre Dame versus Oregon. And I think you'll start to see this year in particular, especially with the SEC going to 9 games. I thought Lane Kiffin, for as much as he says to just be nutty, I thought he was spot on when he talked about the SEC going to 9 games. And he said, it doesn't appear as though the committee is rewarding you for playing tough games.
I
And
remember that. Yes.
and
Yeah.
he pointed out that five of the top 10 most difficult schedules this year, those coaches got fired. He said, so it doesn't help you. It doesn't position you any better, allegedly, in the playoffs, but it positions you in a real bad place to get fired when you don't perform. So I think this year in particular is going to kind of be an inflection point, and the committee is going to essentially dictate what people do. If Texas can go 9-3 and get in, I think you'll still see teams continue to schedule those big out of conference games because okay, they didn't really punish them for losing to Ohio State on the road in an 8-point game. Um, Depending on what they do with the loser of the Big Ten, if it ends up being Ohio State and Indiana. And doomsday scenario for everybody. Michigan creeps up and wins the Big Ten, right? There's still so much that can happen
Mhm.
that can throw this season in flux. I think all you can really take away from the rankings are what are the underlying signals. Hey, you play a tough schedule, you compete against that schedule, you'll have a shot. Um, and I really, and just kind of giving everyone an idea of what you need to do from week to week. I really think that's all you can glean from it from now because there's 0% chance both Ohio State and Indiana get buys. There's 0% chance both Alabama and Georgia are 4-5, right? Or, three that the
To
SEC
get the. Mhm.
finishes 3, 4, and 5,
Yeah.
right? There is going to be a shakeup. And we know that that's just common sense. So I think everybody's got to, it's just a lot of up in arms. A&M fans so upset that they're number 3 and not number 1. Well, conventional wisdom tells you that those things will rectify themselves, right? Because if A&M is truly the number 1 team in the country, they'll go to Austin and beat Texas on the road. They'll go to Atlanta and beat likely, Alabama, Ole Miss, or Georgia in the SEC title game. That at that point it's undisputed.
Yeah.
right? That you be number one. So though a lot of those things that people are really, really fussing about today will work themselves out in the
You know,
next
and
weeks.
I wouldn't want to be number one right now. It's still so early. I think they're in prime position.
I'd
Just
want to be
like,
number one if I was Ohio State or Indiana, knowing that I have a shit schedule
well,
coming up.
yeah,
You know
well,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Knowing
yeah.
that if I know that there's really nothing anyone can do, but at this point, I don't know that the number matters at all because you're getting down the stretch of the games that really matter, where teams are really, really, really fighting for something.
Mhm.
And I think of those things that motivate. I don't know that Michigan needs any more incentive to beat Ohio State
Mhm.
than with whether or not
Uh,
Ohio State is the number
yeah,
one
and
team in
and
the
and
country.
no doubt, and that's going to be big. And like I say, it's good to see. I see the rankings. Okay, you know where you're at. If you're one of those 25 teams, and step into the side real quick. I saw Feinbaum, whatever.
Ball Paul. There you go.
He criticized the Group of Five bid, and he talked about South Florida, and he talked about, and he basically tried to compare it to the times of today where we reward second, third, fourth, and fifth place people. But I also think I think it's good that they have a Group of Five representative, because if you do have those teams that doesn't have the notoriety, doesn't have the historical football significance, but they have a good team that year, and it's usually like hit or miss. Like Boise State was the talk of the town last year, but now you don't hear nothing about them, right? Now. So I think there's room for it, because Boise State or South Florida or Memphis, they're not going to have those SEC, Big 12, Big 10 caliber type games where they're going to get the notoriety, they're going to get the respect of winning their conference games to get those rankings to jump up. You know what I'm saying? To jump up to be in
But
the
at what
top.
point? Well, I think the remedy for that though is because at what point do and I think it's a personal preference, but at what point do you have enough data to say that it's no longer worth it? How many years does the Group of Five continue to get in at the 12 spot, get absolutely boat raced, right? Because it's different now. And I think the argument was, well, look at how these teams performed in the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, underneath that, you had kids sitting out. You
Yeah.
had
Which,
you had all these things that made that bowl game insignificant to an extent to
mm-hmm.
that Power Five school they were playing, that they never really got that Power Five school. There's one team in recent history that comes to mind, and I was very familiar because Tom Herman ended up becoming the Texas coach. But that 20, I believe it was 2019. Um, no, I'm sorry, 2016 or 2017 Houston team.
uh,
They beat a Power Five opponent in the regular season
mm-hmm.
pretty handedly. Then they went on and played Florida State in the bowl game. Nobody from Florida State sat out, and they beat them pretty handedly. And I think they only lost one game that year. So there is a way that these Power Four or these Group of Five schools can go
They beat
and
Oklahoma.
schedule, huh?
You knew that they beat Oklahoma.
They beat Oklahoma. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
They beat Oklahoma, I believe, in the bowl game, and maybe I have them switched. Was it
No,
the
you
other?
got to switch. You got to switch. You got to switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So beat Oklahoma, beat Florida State. Yeah, you deserve to be in that conversation. But I do think today, in today's world where they're gonna have to go on the road, right? So you're putting these Group of Five schools in a really bad spot anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You're sending them into a hostile environment against what is the number five team in the country. So probably a team that just played for their Power Four conference championship. And I don't see a world where and you run down the list: Memphis, Tulane, um, who's the other one? USF. Like I don't even the USF team under Scott Frost that went undefeated, right? There is no world where they go to Athens, Georgia, or
Yeah.
College Station, Texas, or Alabama, or you know, Ohio State, And not only is there no world where they win, there's no world where they even compete. And I think at some point we've got to be able to take a step back and look at the data and say, all right, we've given this a shot. We really tried to test out what was a good theory, but now we have enough data. We've got 10 years worth of games that weren't even within 3 touchdowns.
Well, how long has the football playoff been around?
The
This format,
CFP,
this
I
format.
believe, 2018, I believe, was the first one.
Do you think that's enough time to just say it? Because
Well, with this format, with the group of five,
yeah, yeah,
last year, I believe, last year was the first year.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. So I'm
Well,
saying,
that's why I said that was a legitimate question of how much time
yeah,
is enough time.
yeah. I agree, and I just it's tough because if I'm the little guy, I guess I'm playing devil's advocate. If I'm the little guy and you've got a team that's, like the biggest example, everybody talks about Boise State beating Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl when they ran all those trick plays and they did all that. That was kind of helping towards the argument of why you should do this. Um, even Boise State last year with Ashton Genty, and he was in the Heisman talk, and then the question was, and that's the thing. So the question was, this kid was throwing up these numbers, but then the question was, it was a competition. The question of type of competition. But I think you having those guys come play in this playoff, or if they earn it, it kind of
There's
can't.
just a smarter way in my mind to do it, right?
But you got to think about how far you got to drop down. You think about all those teams in the Big 12.
Well, no, I'm saying
SEC,
there's in my mind
and
there's a smarter way to do it where one, the group of five champion is only going to come out of what, two conferences, two
yeah,
maybe three
the
conferences.
the American or the I don't say Conference USA, American Conference USA, Sun Belt maybe. But you can
So
see that's
let's take the three in the last 20 years. I'm sure if we pulled the last 20 years, it's the Sun Belt, the American, and Conference USA,
yeah,
right?
because
And there's been some realignment,
yeah,
so conferences look a little different. But
no doubt.
we can reasonably look and say, okay, these are the three.
Because
Okay,
you're gonna hear some teams and some names that are gonna make you say, yeah, like Appalachian State. You're gonna
so
hear
we're gonna rotate every
Coastal
year.
Carolina. Yeah.
So we're gonna rotate every year in the preseason, right? The Sun Belt is gonna match up with the Big Ten. The American's gonna match up with the SEC. The Sun Belt is going to match up with the
Mountain
Big
West,
12,
yeah, or yeah,
right? Or the Mountain West is going to
yeah.
match up with the Big 12. And
Mhm.
then we'll rotate them every year, right?
Mhm.
Where those teams will match up. And what that'll do is that'll give us opportunities for these teams to go compete and put it in a neutral site if you have to. But most teams would agree to a home and home,
Mhm.
right? And let's start to figure this out in the regular season, and to even further make sure that these teams are getting their due and getting their fair shot in the conversation. Let's put those ads on the committee, right? Let's give two every year. The committee has to have two group of four ads, don't care where they come from. And that's how you ensure that they're being discussed, that they're getting a
Fairly.
fair shot
Mhm.
without burning a playoff spot to a truly more deserving team. Because just because I was able to build a good team to beat a shit schedule doesn't mean I'm the 12th best team in the country. And I think that's where we've got to get to. We know that the best teams in the NFL playoff are the best teams. We know the best teams in the NBA playoffs are the best teams.
Yeah.
Same with every major sport. So if we're going to pay these kids like pro athletes, if these conferences and these schools are making professional money, we need to put a professional product out there for the fans and for the viewership, because it doesn't serve any purpose. Because one, it as a fan of a team that hopes to be in the playoff conversation every year, if it's not us in that five spot, let's say we've got to compete, whether I get the buy or whether what have you. If I've got to compete against that team that had that, I'm always going to be pissed because it's going to feel like that team had a bye week,
Yeah.
because the disparity is just too great.
And it's tough because it's hard to predict. And like you say, you mentioned like how the pros are, and you like say you say it's the 12th seeded team because of the playoff, not necessarily the 12th best team, but it's the 12th seeded team. But it's hard because football is so grand and big as far as team wise Division One. You think about other formats, and you think about college basketball where there are some schools that make it into the first 60, top 64 of the NCAA tournament. They don't even have football programs at the school, but then there's Cinderella, Davidson, or where your boy Shaka Smart coached and they beat Kansas, VCU. So like those, obviously that field is bigger, which allows greater opportunity for teams to come out of nowhere if they're a 1 seed, versus the 12th seed, however they do it.
But those teams didn't just come. I'm so glad you brought that up because
football is different.
But I'm saying those teams didn't just come out of nowhere, right? VCU was beating Power 4 teams in the regular season. Davidson went on the road at Duke, and I think Steph Curry put up like 38, and they lost by 6. Like, so they had their opportunities in the regular season.
Yeah, but it's kind of been like that though. Like say some group of 5 teams do play, like when do play the Power 4 teams non-conference. So it's the same. It's just different because it's just harder for football.
It feels a lot less Cinderella-y in basketball and to be fair, I also think that's why they win, because they have played those types of schools in the regular season. So when the tournament comes around, they have a fair shot to compete. As much as this is selfish and want another, SEC or Big Ten team in the playoff, I also think you're doing the kids who get there and get absolutely crushed. You're doing them a disservice because they're not ready. They're not prepared.
Well, you sign up, you know what's on. I mean, it's just it's tough. It's tough. I have no sympathy for that. If you want,
and in the NIL world, these teams like it's not even the same. The Ashton Genties of the world, barring a situation with grades, barring a situation where a kid's parent is on staff, or a kid just has some illogical connection to a small school, the group of 5 schools in this world of NIL are only going to get worse. They're not going to get better. They're only going to get worse.
Yeah, and it's tough because it's just tough because we can talk about it all day, but like traditional Power 4, its popularity is winning pedigree, it's all that, and like some of those group of 5 schools kind of get left out. But when you look at it in a grandiose picture, it's you can name, obviously we can name big time players from all those group of 5 schools, and it's tough. And like I say, that committee, that college football playoff, it's never going to please everybody. It's never going to make sense to everybody. It's never going to please everybody. And it is tough. I'm okay with it, giving that one team a shot, because that is almost like the Cinderella, if you will. It is, because when it does pan out, then it's gonna be like, well, now you should give more because look, they went and won it, and not. But I'm not saying that's realistic, but
I just don't know that it'll ever happen, because the disparity between the best team in the country and the best group of 5 school, the
overall,
disparity is so great. There is no amount of X and O's. You know this, right? There is no amount of X's and O's that can make Crockett High School defeat Lake Travis High School in football. And this is, you're talking to a Crockett High alumni now.
Yeah.
Like, there is no amount of X's and O's that's gonna make that happen.
No, you're right. I just think at that level, it's tough, but I do see. But you think about those teams. When last time you heard about Davidson in basketball? When last time you heard about VCU since Shaka Smart left? So those are true indicators of Cinderellas and getting that shot. They're not sustaining. They're not sustaining.
They had to fire Will Wade, but VCU was consistent.
But what I'm saying, like on that grand level, you can say the same thing about Boise
State. Well,
State.
Final Four, no, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it's almost the same thing as saying like Boise State's always in the bowl game. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing, but give them that one shot. I don't know, but we could battle on it all day. I've got more pressing bad stuff to talk about and address and face going into this.
Yeah, let's make this one quick.
So, moving on. This past week,
my Jayhawks. The week today. It's interesting.
I don't want to laugh. You make me laugh. I'm so damn mad about it. Let's recap that. So we're gonna keep it though. So yeah, we're not waving the wheat. We're not playing nothing. It's seriously. Obviously I can laugh and giggle about it because I'm not on staff. It is not a laughing matter. If I was there, it's not a laughing matter as an ex-player. But this past week went to Tempe, Arizona, which a game I don't know if we were even favored, but
You
we
weren't.
we wasn't. But still controlled the game the whole time. Went to Tempe, Arizona, played Arizona Wildcats. We lost 24-20 in a game that we dominated. We outgained Arizona in total yards of offense, 369. They only had 323. You say dominated, still outgained them. Our D line showed up, and that was my biggest worry. And I talked about it with you earlier about Fafita, going all over the place. Sacked him 5 times. Got after him. He was effective in the quarterback run game. But we come out and we dominate. We dominate. Let's see. Let me just give you some numbers. We outgained them. Like I said, we had better third down percentage than them. Our quarterback threw for more yards than their quarterback. Our quarterback even rushed for more yards than their quarterback. But then you get late in the game with a minute left, Arizona gets the ball, and then all of a sudden we forget how to walk and talk. We just we're getting blown off the ball in the run game. And I mean, I think that drive with a minute left, they got the ball back. With a minute left, and I think they ran 3 to 4 plays and scored, and I think 3 out of those 4 plays were runs. Now, I don't say that to say that our defense lost the game because we probably could have did a better job of holding on to the ball and burning the clock a little more and getting it, and keeping it away from their offense. Because watching this game, the whole time I was like holding my breath every time Fafita dropped back because he was a threat every time. But our D line did a good job containing them. Like I said, getting after them. I this was different. Both teams evenly matched. Both teams had 5 wins. Both teams would get bowl eligible off this win. But now it's kind of transitioned into a different deal. We talked earlier. We talked about the 2022 season, win 9 games. We talk about the 2023 season. You're still bowl. You playing another bowl game in Vegas against UCLA, and then you underachieve in 24, and now in 25 you kind of keeping your you know keeping your nose right above water, losing some games. I mentioned the last 6 or 7 games that we lost in the last 2 to 3 minutes in the last 3 years. That's starting to become part of the identity of Kansas football, not being able to be consistent. We've talked about consistency, and it's a cliche word, but I am pinpointing it to we have inconsistency in finishing games. And that's not when some people say, "Oh, we can't finish games because we're not doing well." No, we are winning these games, and we're not consistent enough for 60 minutes to hold on to find a way to get it done. Whether we got to use whatever strategy, if it's getting first downs and then falling down, letting the clock run. If it's whatever you got to do, because at this point we've got to save ourselves from ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And I just don't, I don't understand because I'm not in those 4 walls. So this is not a criticism. I just don't understand why we haven't been able to get it done. If it's a situation where it's a new quarterback, okay, quarterback has some struggles. He hadn't been in that situation. No, I don't have. I'm not going to make excuses because I don't have any excuses. Late game drive, like I said, with a minute remaining, was that kid name that had 3 carries for? I got so many notes here. I didn't want to not miss nothing. Quincy Craig, 3 carries for
Okay.
47 yards, and like I said, that was all in the last drive. Maybe he had, in the last 2 carries he had a gain of 18, and he had a 24-yard touchdown run. If you look at that run, I'll put it up here. We were blown off the ball so bad. This kid didn't make a cut in the grass until like 6 yards, and I don't think he was touched. So I don't know. We were expecting something different, tendency wise, scouting wise, but that has become my mo. That drops us to 5-5 overall. It promotes Arizona to 6-3 overall, which made them bowl eligible. Um, we've got 2 remaining games against very, very good opponents. Go to Ames in 2 weeks on the 22nd and play Iowa State in November, which I have experienced personally. It is not fun to play, and it's probably going to be a night game. But in the last 2 years, we have had success against Iowa State. Even last year when they were very good and undefeated actually, and we thought nobody had a chance, we beat their tail. So that's not impossible. Then you got to end this regular season at home against a very good Utah team who is going to be playing for something, obviously. So last two games, you put yourself in position to say you got to win, or it can look real ugly being 5-7 opposed to 7-5, and or even 8-4, whatever you could have been. But um, one of the things that's starting to go out there is now.
Welcome to
Are
the
you
delusion train.
yeah, are you a program that's kind of shifting from rising program to plateauing program? And I hate to say that, and this is a more serious take about it because I am concerned in the situation. I think Coach Leipold has done a tremendous job. He boosted Kansas to national notoriety again, as far as since the Coach Mangino days of being a relevant program, being a program that's respected, that's feared. The innovativeness of their offense, people could argue that because Coach Kolanecki is gone, that's kind of died down a little bit. Lost changes in defensive coordinators. So that's not excuses because those guys are very capable. But the question out there is now: Are we hitting a wall? Is this and it's hard because, like I said, in 23 or 22, we won 9 games. In 23, we won 7. In 24, we fall one game short of being bowl eligible. So I don't know, but now it's kind of going in the wrong direction, if you will. 9, 7, 5, and who knows what this season's going to be. So I don't know. I don't want to get into the old coaches on the hot seat type thing. I don't like stuff like that, but you got to kind of look at how you're grading out. I'm a big analytical guy. I like stuff, but now it's like, foundation and trajectory versus your current performance. Like say, what was the rising potential and the buzz, like say delusion. I won't say delusion, but now it can become delusional because the expectation is still there and the disappointment is greater. Now, are we plateauing? You know what I'm saying? And to have Iowa State and Utah remaining, it's a tough road ahead to answer some of those questions, man. So
I think you got to look at it a couple of different ways. One, I think so. I always look at this. I'm fortunate enough to have spent some time around one of the greatest athletic directors, in the history of college sports, and DeLoss Dodds. And if you listen to him talk, he always talked about two things. One, well, three things really. One, a great athletic director always has a backup plan, right? Somebody gets fired, I got a list of 5 coaches in my pocket ready to go. Two, when you're in the midst of a struggling program, you have to be able to be honest and evaluate, why are we losing, right? Because there are some things that transcend a coach. Are we losing because we just don't have the talent, man for man, versus what's out there that we're playing on a week in and week out basis? I don't think that's the case for
me either.
Kansas.
I don't either. I don't think that's not week in, week out. I don't either.
And then the next step is, he said, you always kind of evaluate a program like a maze, right? You're trying to get from one end to the other. And as you're on the ascend, which Kansas was, he said inevitably you're going to hit a wall. And you have to decide, was that just one bump, or then we'll be able to change course and keep going up, or are we going to turn this thing around and try a whole different direction to try to get to where we want to get to? So I think that's kind of where Kansas is right now. um and it's an interesting question. I always love to see. I know if it were Texas, I know there's no question where Texas has always believed it, rightly or wrongly, and this is not a endorsement of the policy, um, but Texas has always believed that they will do and change anything necessary to chase success. Um, and I don't know. I think, Coach Leipold is where many of Texas coaches have been, where folks just down the stretch are looking for something because he's a very likable guy. You're absolutely right, where he has, pulled Kansas out of the ashes. And So I think people are just looking for anything.
Yeah.
Give us a win, give us some close games, give us some
Well,
something.
we got enough of those. We got enough of those,
Give
but
us some something.
we're we're,
Well,
we're always on the
a
losing
close
end of it.
game against a bad team and a close game against a good team
Yeah.
aren't evaluated the same,
Yeah.
right?
You're right.
So I
But
think it's no nobody would make any bone. Kansas is not going to be favored, and it may not even be close in the last two games,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
can you beat the spread? Can you play them close? Can you look like a program that still has something to fight for?
Yeah.
And I think that'll go a long
Gotta
way.
reclaim. Yeah, you gotta reclaim the momentum. You gotta
You go
reclaim
and
the
get
momentum.
you go and
Yeah.
get boat raced, and I think what happens in the off season will tell me a lot about what the powers that be think
Yeah.
about Kansas. Because if you go get boat race the last two games and you don't make a change, that signals to me we are just basketball school. We don't really care that much.
Yeah.
So
God,
it'll be
that makes
interesting.
me
I love
that makes
the
me so
I love
mad that you said
the
this.
interpersonal dynamics of it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's and it's starting to affect recruiting. We just
Yeah.
lost a big time recruit, a DB flip from Kansas to Miami. I think he was rated one of the top three DBs in the state of Kansas, but we haven't committed all year, and then this past week and I don't get on those message boards. I don't get on all that, but you got Kansas fans saying, "Oh, he made the right choice. I would get out of here if I would." But then it'd be the same one when you beat and upset a team. That's my school. People don't understand, what it takes. I understand what you see is now, but what it takes to build, and especially everybody's story, everybody's path is different. Obviously, a Texas rebuild and a Kansas rebuild is totally different. It's totally different in what needs to be done. Texas may just have to change out their coach or get a new quarterback. Where Kansas has addressed some things, new stadium, new facilities. Then we got the things to attract those recruits. Now we've built up our collective. Now we've built that Texas is already up there. Texas has got damn Lamborghinis and all this stuff, so it looks different for each team. And for people to feel and think that, oh, it should be done the same way, they're dumb as hell for that. And I don't
Well, yes and no, because at a point we were chasing the Joneses. Texas went from being the Joneses to, and I'll never forgive the powers that be for the Steve Patterson era when he was the athletic director, where he was cutting spending, he wasn't investing in facilities, wasn't doing this, wasn't doing that, and we got surpassed in a major way by the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Oregons. So we had to double, triple down, reinvest in the program to go be able to compete with what we were chasing.
But that
I
that
think
was more of
Kansas
the
is in that same
decision. But
boat.
that was more of decision rather than resources. Texas is always going to have the resources and decisions on how you do things and where you put those resources or don't put those resources is different. I know for a fact that
Well, I think it's the same for Kansas.
yeah,
Where are you putting
I
those
know. But what I'm
resources?
saying, until we got this big $500 million upgrade from our alum, nobody was putting in like that amount of money. Like you got it's just a bigger pool in Texas.
Yeah.
So and that's not to say it's excuse. It's just where we are. It's where you are. I love KU to the
But I
day
also
I
think
die, and I
it's all how willing are you to go
yeah
hand in hand?
yeah
How willing are you to give folks an outsized Kansas and Jeff Long probably had no interest in big time boosters and
yeah.
folks that
You're
are
right.
gonna say, because I bet you what, I bet you him and David Booth are BFFs. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I bet they are best friends because that's what comes with that.
You mean our current AD,
Or sorry, your current
Travis
AD,
Goff? Yeah, Travis
Travis
Goff.
Golf.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Shout out to Travis, my
Jeff
guy.
Jeff Long at the time.
Yeah,
But yeah, you what are you willing to do to
yeah,
win? I
yeah.
think becomes the question.
And I think Coach Leipold is a proven winner on different levels, but I think he knows what he's got to do. And sometimes those are hard conversations, those are hard decisions. People gonna say, "Oh, that's why he makes the money," but it's bigger. And you always when you run a program, you always have those foundational questions. What's best for the team? What's best for the player? What's best for the kid? Outside the player, and so like coaches, and obviously it's unfortunate. I'm that adult. I'm a coach, and sometimes you get let go because performance is not up to up to standard, because all those other factors come before that: the
Right.
team, the kids, the play. So I mean, I say all that to say, damn it, we should have won, and coulda, shoulda, woulda, because this would be a different conversation. It may not be it's all fixed conversation, but at least it's like you're bowl eligible. You're still gaining momentum because you're establishing consistency of being a bowl eligible team year in, year out. You know what I'm saying? That was the first step. Like you talked about, losing big, losing close, winning big. So now it's one of those things. So I don't want to, like, you tried to clown me off camera. I don't want to beat a dead horse. You said you didn't want to beat a dead Jayhawk. So nevertheless, we're real quick. We're open, so we don't play. So thank God I've got a rest. But the Cowboys come back on because they just came off a bye week. So we'll see. But I know Texas is coming off a bye week, but a big matchup in Athens. Tell me about it.
I'm excited to see, how much of where Texas has improved. Everybody's back. First time, I don't even think it happened all last year in the SEC conference play. First time they've released the depth chart with no injuries to report.
You asked for it. You wanted it. That's what you want.
None to report. Three of the most beautiful words I've ever heard in my life. Georgia's, not a whole lot. They're dealing with a major injury on their defensive line, but that was going into last game, and they very clearly solved it already going into Mississippi State. Their tight end, they run a lot of 12 personnel, so two tight ends. One of their tight ends, Lucky, he took a awful hit in that game. Conveniently enough, that kid's last name that hit him from Mississippi State, that kid's last name is Manning. So I don't know. Read into it what you want. But I'm really excited because I know that a win truly means that we have done some things, because you don't just walk into Athens and win. You're fighting too many demons, right? You're fighting a true home field advantage. You're fighting an elite coaching staff. You're fighting, I think it would be doing a disservice to Georgia's roster to say a roster just as talented. I think in the measurables, Georgia has the talent edge by a slight margin. It's not huge. It's not insurmountable. So I know that if we won, it's us and not something else. It's us. So I'm really excited to see. The numbers are good. Sark is really good. I think he's 13-4 after a bye week in his time at Texas. 13-4 as a head coach coming off a bye week. I believe he's 8-2 in the last 3 or 4 years here at Texas, coming off a bye. None of those byes were against Georgia on the road. So I'm excited. I also think I am a little at peace because I know we can survive the outcome. A win, we're a lock in the playoffs.
That's been the consistency. I think that's been the only thing I've heard, and I'm looking back to it, that a 3-loss Texas team can get in. That's the only thing I've ever heard, and people are saying it more than one. Like, they're convinced a 3-loss Texas team is good enough to still be in. So
because what you drop for a loss,
yeah,
you should, in theory, at least pick back up, if not more, with a win against A&M, right?
Yeah.
So
it has to be.
Right. Whatever you lose, you're going to lose, a couple spots,
yeah,
3,
and,
maybe 4 spots.
If you look at
then
the
you get
long
them
game, if you look at the long game, that's not a bad position Texas to be in. Y'all have emerged. I mean, from 20 when y'all ranked 20 against Vanderbilt, now all of a sudden y'all are 10 in the college football playoff.
Now Texas they made history 2 ways, right? One, first team to start preseason number 1,
drop out the fastest,
drop all the way out. Also, the first team to start number 1, drop all the way out, and work their way back in the top 10. Wow. So I think that just tells me a lot about the development of the team, the development of the staff, and how they were able to block out some outside noise and just keep it going. So really excited. I do wish, and maybe that's why the oversized reactions kind of pissed me off this week, because I really think Texas flourishes in this us against the world, embracing the supervillain mentality. I think about when we went to Alabama in 2023 and won. Nobody was giving Texas a shot. Alabama at the time, I think they had won like 30 straight, or 30 straight home games against non-conference opponents. Like it was nuts. So I wanted this very much to be that, but I'm seeing a little it's not a mixed bag. It's still heavy Georgia, but it's not as one-sided as I wanted it to be. But I hope that's what the staff is doing behind closed doors is guys, we got to lock arms and it's us against the world.
Gotta be,
But
gotta
the
be.
numbers are pretty even. Some of the things I can count on. Georgia's going to play well against the run. Texas is going to play well against the run. Um, what does that do?
What do you say to the reports about Billy Napier being in Athens this past week?
Not a problem. I mean, it is what it is. It is
Saying
what it is. I mean, Texas
and
has done it. Texas
yeah,
has done
yeah.
it, and
We
think
talked about that, but they talking about
yeah,
he
I think nothing surprises me in particular in the SEC, but at a high level program, nothing surprises me in the edge of
edge. Mhm.
in terms of trying a team trying to get an edge to win a game. Secondarily, I don't care for two reasons. One, this is not the same Texas team that played Florida. Two, Georgia's coaching staff is so elite. Billy Napier is not going to come in there and tell them anything that they didn't already pick up on watching the same film Florida did
Yeah,
and
yeah.
watching the same game that Florida played. So, if anything, it and I think football sometimes the pregame and the buildup is a little smoke and mirrors because I think Georgia wants us focused on okay,
Yeah,
well, they got Billy Napier in there,
yeah,
so they're going to try to do what Florida did and
yeah.
whatever.
But like I say, not the same team, so it don't
And
even
but
matter.
in all likelihood, at this point in the season, teams are going to play to their strengths. So I don't think Georgia's going to throw out, especially they're not coming off a bye. They're coming, they had game week and whatnot. So I think they're less likely to come in and do what they've done versus try to become
Some
what
yeah,
what beat.
yeah.
Texas has a unique opportunity. I would expect. I can tell you a couple things I know we won't see. I know we won't see a first play motion to the wide receiver to the outside. I know we won't see that.
Not gonna
Uh,
go for three games. Not gonna go for 3 games in a
won't go
row.
for 3 games in a row. That would, and
Yeah,
if we did it and it worked, that would be absolute malpractice by the Georgia coaching staff.
that'd be wild. That'd be wild.
But I'm
Yeah.
interested to see what because I think you gain a lot when you understand what you're looking for in the sense of I want to know what Texas identified as tendencies and what they're going to try to break and do different in this game after a week of self scouting,
Hmm.
after a week of
Sure.
being able to make some
Gotta self
changes.
scout on open weeks.
And
Got it. Yeah.
hopefully we can, hopefully we can catch them slipping in an area or two because their secondary is not at all infallible.
Mhm.
Over the middle, they're last or near last um, in the SEC. Generating pressure, they're last in the SEC. So we'll have an opportunity to see what Arch can do if they can keep him clean. I fully expect there's going to be two or three things that Georgia's been practicing for 3 or 4 weeks that they have not put on film. All great teams, all great coaches do that. How well can we handle those things? How well can our staff adapt and identify? We talked about, I have such a great understanding for what now goes into a game plan. Because as a fan, I used to always say, well, that's not working. Why can't they change?
Yeah.
When in actuality, most coaches, and you can look for yourself, you look at whoever's calling the plays, depending on how big that play sheet is, that's the plan.
Hmm.
And the bigger it is, the more options you have. But Sark's got a trifold, so it's probably a mid-sized plan. I don't know how Lincoln
That
Riley does it.
that's why you hear the word execution
Yeah.
because you got the plan. Execution. Well, I'm gonna tell you, Lincoln Riley comes from the air raid school, and so that's the Mike Leach card where you talk. It's only 4 to 5 plays, and you run these plays no matter what, and then you go into kind of the feel of it. But the air raid, yeah, Lincoln Riley, we kind of going off, but Lincoln Riley
So
comes from
yeah,
the
but
school of air raid. Yeah.
I'm saying that to say I'm really excited to watch the game. Um, I know we'll compete. I just gotta be able to, so I can sleep at night. I gotta be able to believe that we will compete.
I mean, I think
And
so.
I think when you give yourself a chance, it's going to come out. It's going to come down to execution and X's and O's and
That's it. And Jimmy's and Joe's
Jimmy's
and
and Joe's. But Jimmy's and Joe's are the same here, right?
yeah,
If not
it's a
at a
wash. It's
deficit,
a wash. Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, and I will be a Texas fan this week because I am not a Georgia fan, and so for multiple reasons. But so
we'll take it.
so hook 'em, and obviously my record's pretty good when I'm in DKR, but
We'll
this is
take it.
different. Yeah. So, but
With
yeah,
me, you went without me, and we lost.
but it was against Kansas, so it's a
Right.
win.
We'll
Anyways,
never
but
do that again.
yeah. Well, yeah, so we'll definitely be. I will look for Georgia to probably pressure Arch early to see if he can handle second level pressure. I think
I'll look for them to try.
Yeah,
I
well, that's
want
what
to
I'm saying.
see.
You said exotic something different. They run that 3-3 mint. Defense where a lot of people have a hard time identifying 3 down, 4 down. You're dropping the weak side in boundary, and I can go into a whole different thing. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, that's what I just off the top of the dome. That's what I'm thinking that they'll do to try to get into his head. But what time Saturday?
6:30.
6:30. Okay.
Keys to the game.
Yeah.
Don't turn the ball over. At a minimum, you have to have you. I don't think we'll be able. I think we're going to try to run the ball because you always try to just see because you never know. There may be an edge somewhere that someone hasn't exploited. So I think you will try to run the ball. My gut tells me we'll try. It won't work. So the backup plan has to be what we call simulated runs, right? Motions, throwing it out to guys in space.
Long hand.
A really good quick game, which Texas has executed on Georgia in years past because when Georgia had really good defensive ends and elite interior linemen that led the country in sacks, we had when they came to Austin, we had to have a really quick game and try to get those guys off their heels. This will be the first time we've played Georgia where, they may have a little more time. I think we'll try to keep the possession count low. Again, I think both teams have a very similar game plan. They want long possessions that end in a kick. They don't give a damn with how it goes.
No matter what. Yeah, and we say that in coaching. We tell kids in each possession with a kick.
Texas is 32-4 when scoring 24 points or more. That's our number. That's our target. We went back and forth. Some of my friends want the game in the 30s, and I'm like, guys, that doesn't suit us in particular because that means our defense is not generating turnovers. Our defense is not getting off the field.
Yeah, and if you're talking about minimal possessions, minimal possessions is not gonna equate out to 30.
I think both teams are so similar. I think whatever wins out will probably be the case, right? If both teams use a lot of tempo and score fast, I think the other team is equipped to at least attempt to do that. Because again, it would be malpractice if the primary game plan for this game, knowing how both teams play against the run, they're 1-2 in the SEC. They're both top 10 in the country. Like if both of these teams came into this game preparing with the primary game plan to run the ball, I would be shocked. That feels like malpractice to me.
Yeah, and I'll just say, on that side, they're gonna pressure Arch, but Texas has got to be 4 and 5 have got to show up. 4 and 5 have got to show up.
And we've got to get, if we can contain, it's the same game plan with Pavia.
Yeah.
Contain, get home with 4. If we can do that, I would like to see a lot more man coverage. You are going to have to roll an extra body over to Zachariah Branch. As good as I believe, Malik Muhammad is, as good as I believe, Grayson Littleton, a freshman coming on, as good as I believe those kids are, Zachariah Branch is in a different, he's a tier below Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. Yeah. He's probably number 3. He's probably the number 3 wide receiver in the country. So you got to help out over there. And then everybody else, you got to be able to man them up and go play.
Yeah.
If we can do that and we can get home and we can simulate some pressure here and there and get them behind the chains and get them in some negative downs, I like it.
Well, I'll be there. Well, I don't know if you watching it somewhere.
I haven't even decided, man. We're talking. I got some friends going to a bar. A couple of my friends want to go to a Georgia bar and watch it. A couple of my friends want to just chill. I got to see how I feel on game day
I got you.
and what my anxiety is like because I do want to watch. I think it's actually. I'll talk about it in the next slide, but it's actually an interesting weekend where you've got the new blood versus the old blood and Texas and Oklahoma playing Alabama and Georgia. And I think both newcomers have a good shot. And just what does that do for the changing of the guard in the SEC?
Well, I'll probably be here watching it in the comfort of my man cave. But yeah, great segue. But let's go. Let's preview this week. Last week you had a good week. My emotional up and down of going 3-2. Some teams let me down, minus Kansas. Yeah, so I'm not gonna go into that real quickly. I'll give you mine. Obviously, I got Cincinnati. They're quietly they're quietly doing something, just kind of staying below tier of being in a conversation of the Big 12 championship. Waiting for Utah, BYU to really slip up. Obviously, I think Kansas State's gonna blow out Oklahoma State. Arizona State over West Virginia. Texas Tech is rolling. We've heard enough about them. I think Utah beats a good Baylor team in Waco. I think it's going to be close. We just have to see.
Quit sending your kids there.
I look for BYU to bounce back. TCU is a team that let me down. It looked like they got some issue going consistency wise as well. Everybody else on the conference is a bye, thank God. And like I said, I'm a Texas fan this week, so my highlighted game is the Texas Georgia game. So what do you got?
I got Texas going on the road, pulling an upset. I've got A&M holding steady at home. They probably cover that spread and just dominate South Carolina. I do think we'll get the answer to that pretty early. What do they do against Lenore Sellers? How do they play Nick Harbor? Those are really the only two.
There was a rumor about him being in the portal and sitting out the rest of the year.
Nick
Lenore
Harbor?
Sellers. No, Lenore Sellers. Quarterback. Yeah.
I mean, if so,
I didn't give it a second look, but go ahead. Yeah.
But that's the only thing that would give him a chance is can he be dynamic and a game changer? Because again, you talk about a defense, A&M's got one. So really being able to get them off their heels, give them an uneven box count if Sellers is going to use his feet and do some other things. I don't see it though. A&M by a lot. I've got LSU literally only because I think Arkansas is just that bad. I have no faith. And that told me more than anything. I know this from coaching. I know this from running a business. There is no better reflection of you as a leader and of your program than how things go when you are gone. Mm-hmm. And watching how disorganized LSU was, how ill-prepared they were last week, just how much of a shit show it was without Brian Kelly told me more about the show that Brian Kelly was running. So LSU literally only because Arkansas is that bad.
That's Frank Wilson.
Yeah.
Head coach, yeah.
Give me Kentucky. They figured out something a little late, but better late than never. I think Mark Stoops is in that same boat of one, he's got the benefit of, this is a bad time for Power 4 programs to be looking for a head coach because Kentucky, just being honest, right? Kentucky would be way down on that list. Mm-hmm. But they figured out, they played really fast last week. So, Tennessee Tech they're 10-0, but let's be for real. Yeah. So I think they dominate that game. I think they have an opportunity in the final 2 weeks of the year. Can they play spoiler? Can they show some life?
Yeah.
Can they do some things that'll give them some hope? Because they got all their important pieces are coming back next year. So can they build some momentum? I've got Oklahoma going on the road.
I couldn't believe that when I saw it.
I've got Oklahoma going on the road, pulling an upset. against Alabama. I think Mateer is really good. I think Bama's defense can be had. So I just like the dynamic there. They played really bad. They played poorly to start the season, played really well, then kind of had some ho hummers. So if they can pressure Ty Simpson, I believe in Brent Venables as a defensive mind, and he's always going to get guys off of what they want to do. So I think if they can get Ty Simpson to turn the ball over, which he doesn't do a whole bunch of, I like what can happen there. So give me Oklahoma, Tennessee by 1 million, Ole Miss also by 1 million.
Yeah.
And then I've got Mississippi State going on the road.
That pick. I like that pick.
Going to Columbia.
Like
Missouri is just so bad on offense. They are so bad. Mississippi State still leads the conference in turnovers.
It's amazing what a quarterback can do. The impact of a quarterback, even though they said they got the best running back in the SEC. It's amazing what a quarterback can do.
So I like it. I think we'll learn a lot. My highlighted game is Notre Dame and Pitt. Go Pitt. It gives everybody, it gives the SEC a little more breathing room.
How about to say, and it kicks Notre Dame out of the conversation. Period. After, you lose that, they're out of the conversation. Period.
They boat race them though, boy. They're firmly entrenched if that happens.
I like
and arguably rightfully so.
Yeah, I like Marcus Freeman though. I like him. So yeah, so it's exciting. It's
I like him too, just not at my own expense.
No doubt. I think it's kicking up though. Now after this week, you're really gonna start to see some stuff revealed. I mean, just on the grand stage, you've got some, like say, you've named some big matchups. Obviously the Texas Georgia, the Alabama Oklahoma game, and even the Pitt Notre Dame game. Texas Tech just has to keep doing what they've been doing. They'll be fine. These are teams that are in that conversation of those top 12, and BYU's got to just win out, including the Big 12 championship. But we'll see, man. But that's all I got, man. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go get into bed because I am depressed. My boys depressed me. Now I'm gonna go watch some film. Real quick. I don't know if you saw it, a new segment on our show, Future Sundays. We broke down some NFL prospects, had some great feedback, a lot of views, great feedback. I took it. I'm going to revamp some stuff. It was something I was just trying out, but be on the lookout for the next episode coming next week. So that's been a good addition to it, But as always, Eric, I appreciate you. I know you've got some stuff to do, so I appreciate your time. He is a Texas insider and a very busy man. But as always, it's rock chalk to the day I die.
Praise the Lord and hook 'em horns, baby.
All right, we see y'all next time.
Hey, see y'all.